You're listening to KNX In Depth with Mike Simpson. I'm Charles Feldman.
Coronavirus has impacted just about every element of our lives, so why wouldn't it mess with the holiday shopping season? There's some rumbling among toy companies that some of their most in-demand toys are missing from the shelves. Virtual galleries, too, of many retailers are blaming a slowdown in the operations at West Coast shipping ports.
The shipping bottleneck appears to be mostly impacting smaller and medium-sized toy manufacturers, at least for now, but could it be predictive of more shortages in holiday goods and all kinds of products? Gene Seroka is executive director of the Port of Los Angeles. Gene, thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Charles.
So Mike and I are having this sort of notion of these poor lonely toys sitting there at the port, not making their way to the people who want them for the holidays. Is that going to happen?
No, not necessarily, but this is a different year from those in the past. Traditionally, November, December is a busy time for us, but most folks import their holiday season goods starting around July, August, and typically have most of their inventory in by the end of October. This is different, though.
So what do things look like for you guys right now? Is there a delay? Is there a backlog you're trying to work through when it comes to some of these containers?
Mike, yes, there is. And I'll try to paint a picture for your listeners. Today at the Port of Los Angeles, very busy as we have been since middle of summertime, coming off probably the worst first 6 months of the year that we could ever have imagined because of COVID-19 and the compilation of effects dealing with the trade tensions from China. But today we've got 20 ships at the Port of Los Angeles, of all varieties, container ships being the largest, that carry those finished goods in from Asia. And we have 11 ships outside of the port awaiting to come in. A little bit exacerbated by the holiday weekend where we didn't have as many folks on the job as we normally would in a traditional business week. But throughout Monday through Friday of this week, we'll start to work that inventory of vessels down.
Now, of course, as you know better than most, the port really, it's all about the people who work there. What's the health like there when it comes to COVID?
We've been very fortunate. Early days, from Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti to us down here at the port and the International Longshore and Warehouse Union that makes up about 15,000 of our dock workers, worked early on with the Employers Association to make sure that we had the proper protocols in place to keep our workers safe. And up and down the West Coast, with so many thousands of workers, we've had a very small percentage of those test positive, and even fewer have to go into the hospital. So we have been virtually at full strength with our longshore dock workers since day one.
Well, that's good news there. So in terms of getting everything out the door on time, and you got to get these gifts and presents out to the stores and out of those crates, how long does something sit before you can move it right now?
Well, about 5 days. And that's a little higher than normal, simply because it's all been one-way trade, Mike, so far. And what we've seen is because of the trade policy, our U.S. exports have been really hammered. We're down 22 out of the last 24 months on exports here at the Port of L.A. And to compound matters, with COVID, most of us are not spending money on services. We're buying goods, whether they be at the retail level, big box or home improvement stores, or like many of us, online. And we have just had a deluge of import cargo coming that started late June, early July, and continues now through this time period where we see a commingling of not only those holiday goods that are traditional, but a replenishment of stock at our warehouses, distribution centers, and store shelves that is unprecedented in the United States, simply because you and I, the U.S. consumer, are buying so many more tangible goods than we normally do during the course of the year.
So let's go beyond the holidays into the next year, because it's not going to be that far off until we hit the next year. What do you see the state of the...
We're still going to be buying all this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, well, where will the Port of LA be come January, February?
Yeah, we've got a couple of milestones coming up, Charles, and that's a good question as well. We'll see a little bit less cargo as we tabulate our numbers for November, a little bit less than that even in December. But then we'll start to pick up in January before the pre-Lunar New Year holiday in Asia. So we might get a little bit of time to catch our breath and move out some of this backlog. I know that our terminal operators, shipping lines, truckers, and cargo owners are all prioritizing those shipments that need to move out, whether they're fulfillment orders needing to be on the shelves or have already been spoken for by the American consumer. We'll need to get a line of sight on what this means, simply because I don't see us coming back to a service orientation anytime soon. So we're going to keep buying.
This is a nerdy question, but this is all fascinating because how much you move, but how far out can you go? Like how far do you forecast like what's coming in and with these ships and how many containers? I mean, how far do you look ahead?
We can go out as deep as 40 days before a vessel comes into Los Angeles. And think of it, Mike, as a far-reaching location like places I've worked, Singapore, Jakarta, that typically ship goods up to a larger Asian port, load them onto a big vessel, and then come over to LA. But our sweet spot is usually 10 to 14 days. And this is through our nation's only port system called the Port Optimizer that was co-created with GE Transportation and Wabtec. So we've got a line of sight better than some. We've got the ability to know what's coming in. In fact, our next 3 weeks are going to average about 32 to 44% higher compared to the same weeks last year. We already know that. We're trying to pre-position the assets of rail and truck power, as well as making sure our skilled labor and our apprentices, the longshore casuals, are out in strong numbers.
Let's see if I can out nerdy Mike's nerdy question. Is there a port or somewhere else in the world that is projected to really give LA a run for the money soon?
Well, it's interesting, and that's a good question, because the three largest ports that jockey for that number one position are traditionally Shanghai, Singapore, and Rotterdam. And the volume at their ports is probably 40% higher than LA and Long Beach combined. Difference being that those three ports, as great as they are, and we do business with them on a regular basis, have great relationships. They handle a lot of relay cargo. And it would be akin to an airplane flight that goes through Chicago, jump on a smaller craft to get to Des Moines, as an example. Here in Los Angeles and Long Beach, all the cargo that's coming our way is ours, whether it be for local consumption in the Southland area of 20 million people, or for on carriage to the interior of the U.S. by rail, of which we command the largest and strongest share in the industry today.
Gene Seroka, Executive Director, Port of LA. So much stuff.